Welcome, boys and girls. Christine here with a discussion about Broken Arrow. I have reached over 1,000 ELO, and I just want to talk about my experience playing this game in multiplayer, the things that I've learned along the way, my perspective on the game, and the kind of things that people should be aware of playing this game online, and also the kind of things that are lacking with the game. Now, balance, of course, is something very obvious and something that I think the developers do need to improve. But there's also a question of features, I think. So personally, I played quick matches. I did not play in a pre-made. I deliberately chose not to play in a pre-made. My win rate, KD ratio, not the best in the world, though there were certainly things that I learned along the way. Like, for instance, KD ratio may not necessarily matter as much as some people do. That's going to go into a discussion on the mentality of players in matches and what really does matter in terms of winning a match. But I do think the game could really use more options over here, like in terms of having different roles you can assign to yourself. Like if you're going to play support in a match, it would be nice to know that before entering a match, like who's going to play support or who's going to play focused on tanks, infantry, planes, and all that. I think it would be good for people to give themselves that assignment. I don't necessarily believe there is a reason why the developer should limit how many people play a particular role, but it would be good for players on your own team to know what they're dealing with, especially because you might enter a match or entering a match blind. You don't necessarily know what people are going to focus on. Yes, they're going to have, you can assume they're going to have artillery, you're going to assume they're going to have some level of jets, recon, and all that, but the focus of a particular deck is also going to be important from my perspective. And team coordination can be a tricky thing. Balance, bit of a different discussion. I started out with balanced deck, so I started out playing with an armor brigade, and then I quickly switched to, or after a while, I just realized, okay, it's not necessarily going to work out as well as I thought it would, because I wanted to have a balanced deck, having all kinds of things in it, and then I realized, yeah, it's all well and good to have a balanced deck and can help you in certain situations, but given the tendencies that people have online, for me at least, going with Special Forces and Airborne has worked very well. Though I also do have a deck over here for the USMC where I'm looking to focus a bit more on tanks, just going with something a bit different though. May need to refine things a bit. There are certain decks that will work better if you're playing alone. There are certain decks that I believe will work better if you've got team members that you can rely on, that you know they're going to do something. So for instance, take into consideration an AC-130. An AC-130 can be a great plane in a lot of ways, but you do need to suppress enemy air defenses in order to use it properly. So when you do manage that, it can be bloody fantastic, but you do need to manage that in the first place. Same thing with bombing runs, same things with nukes and all that kind of stuff, though I do find using a B2 Spirit even without that kind of coordination to still be very, very useful. There's all kinds of things on this subject. Now, to mention a couple of things, the game runs fairly well from my personal experience. There are certainly performance drops, though I'm not sure so much if that's so much because of the game itself or because people running the game on lower end computers. I do believe the developers should introduce a mandatory benchmark for anyone that's looking to play the game ranked, as Age of Empires and Age of Mythology have done, to force people to lower their settings or lower the resolution because they just don't have enough performance in their system. But on my computer, this game is certainly utilizing a lot of resources on my computer. I have 47 Ti, lots of memory, and an i7-14700K CPU, so pretty powerful computer. But I am quite impressed on the level of performance, especially given the fact that I believe they're using the Unity engine. And I gotta say, a lot of games made in Unity run pretty poorly. This game runs very, very well, especially considering how good it looks. There's certainly room for improvement. Like, anti-aliasing could be done better from my perspective, especially with some resolution scaling options. But all the same, like from my experience, game is remarkably stable. I don't think I've crashed once in a match, though I think some people have. Like, that's one of the reasons I believe that the developer should introduce a mandatory benchmark. There's some things that the game does struggle with, like when infantry is dropped from a plane or certain actions are happening, it does noticeably slow down during those actions, so there's some weirdness with respect to that, but for the most part, really solid performance, really solid stability. From what I've played, and I've encountered a lot of issues with a lot of different games. We live in the era of bad game optimization. What can you say on that? Still, room for improvement on that subject, and I really do think the developers should add in more options with regards to the kind of matches you have. So you could have a quick match, but then you'd have ranked play, team ranked play, different sizes of teams, so 2v2s, 3v3s, and all that, as standard game modes, with their own ladders, if you will, for them. Because right now, one of the big issues I have with the game is that you're either playing in a pre-made or you're playing with randoms. And with randoms, it's kind of like playing Russian roulette, really, or hitting a piñata. You don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes you get good teams that do communicate and do coordinate and do a fantastic job. Other times you get people who have no idea what they're doing and have no interest in coordination. Hell, some of these people are barely playing the game as is. That's not even talking about the issue with people leaving matches. Oh, you lost phase 1? Quit. Or worse, people go AFK during matches, and it takes a long time for the game to disconnect them. Because I'm certain there is an automatic AFK monitor in the game, but it takes too long. Like, if you're AFK for more than 2-3 minutes, you should be disconnected. If you're not doing anything for 2-3 minutes, you should seriously be disconnected. Like, even if you're just clicking on stuff, if you're literally just tapped out of the game should disconnect you. And that's for more than 2 minutes, right? There are certainly some down periods, but you should be forced to be engaged actively in the game. And I also believe firmly that if someone leaves during a match, you should lose less ELO if you stayed in the match and played it in the game. Like, yes, the losing team should lose some ELO, but if you're winning and you lost people, you should probably gain more ELO, just inherently because of that. And all kinds of different things, like maybe we could talk about like an automatic draw if a match starts and someone just instantly leaves or something along those lines, or leaves within the first 2 minutes of a match. We could talk about different kinds of options, like at the beginning of a match, when everyone's selecting their decks, it would be great to have the information like, okay, what do people have? Just more information, create a better situation in terms of people communicating with each other in the game. I do not believe Discord pre-mades or Discord servers are a tool that developers should use as a crutch for the lack of in-game features. So there should be more in-game features with regards to that to get people coordinating with each other, or even making pre-mates like clans, teams, guilds, whatever. Have that in game, have that kind of community organization in the game itself. I do believe those are very important things, because it is exceptionally frustrating losing some of these matches, because you're trying really hard. Other people on your team are trying. Then there's 1, 2, maybe 3 people that are doing absolutely nothing in a game. Now, of course, the lack of a surrender option, as well as the overall length of each individual match, does contribute to this problem, because no one wants to sit there for 20 plus minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes in a match that they feel they've lost. Although, it should be pointed out, there's a lot of catch-up mechanics, so as long as you're in a situation where you haven't completely screwed up in both Phase 1 and Phase 2, you can generally come back and actually win in Phase 3. I've had that happen to me. Or I've had matches where my team was doing pretty well in the first 2 phases, and then we lose Phase 3 by 1-2 points, something along those lines. Or one of my more ridiculous matches in Kaliningrad, we were getting hammered in both Phase 1 and Phase 2, And then phase 3, at the beginning of it, pretty much 2 people left. One, I think, went AFK. But what ended up happening, we still lost the match, but we lost it by 1 point. That should give you an idea of how much recovery space there is in Broken Arrow. And a lot of people don't take advantage of it. A lot of people would just rather quit than try and put in any effort. And they play like this as well. Like, I've seen people over 1.2k ELO, 1.3k ELO, even higher than that. I've seen people play online. I've seen videos, etc., from various content creators, their perspectives. And not how they play necessarily, but how people in that match, in their matches, play. A lot of people are lazy, and a lot of people play really poorly. Just a couple of examples. People don't do recon enough. They don't send units on the flank to scout around or secure those flanks. They call in air defense units and then put supplies on those air defense units, and then they hide them in the forest, when really, with air units, you kind of want to leave them in something of an open spot, obstructed by buildings and all that, or forests, sure, but you want to have enough space for air defense to be able to fire properly. And then you want to move once that air defense has actually taken a shot. You want to use radar actively. You want to micro your units. This game doesn't have APM, it has APH. Actions per hour. I'm not joking. Seriously, I think that you could probably have some people that have an APH of like 300 in a match. Yeah, that's ridiculously bad. Or you have people that they call in units, they take a point or 2 points at most, and they sit on those points and do absolutely nothing. They don't fire their artillery constantly, they're not using their defenses, their air assets properly, etc. And the worst part about all of this, it's not just that these people are playing poorly or playing in a very passive way. It's also the fact that the game kind of rewards them for it, because they might lose. They certainly will lose a lot of matches through this, but they'll also win other matches, and you do gain more ELO from winning a match and losing a match if you're, outmatched in terms of ELO. But on top of that, a lot of people care about the scoreboard. So you might have someone that's doing all these things, keeping their air defenses really passive and way too far back, as opposed to keeping them more frontal so that they can shoot down planes before they become a problem. Like, shooting down a B2 after it fires its nuke is great. Shooting down the B2 before it fires its nuke, that is amazing. But yeah, just like lack of attention, really passive playstyle, all that kind of stuff. But these kind of people, a lot of these people, do end up in a situation where they're actually scoring higher. Like, they end up some of these people may end up at the top of the scoreboard just by sitting on 2 points, contributing nothing to winning a match. Like, controlling 2 points is useful, but not if the rest of your team is getting hammered on all sides and you're not doing anything to contribute to them. People keep their infantry in the same position. Some people keep their infantry even when it's getting bombarded by artillery. And with artillery, the way you should use artillery, and you will find this in many different games, not just strategy games, the way you should use artillery, you take a couple of shots, however many you think you can get away with, take that risk, like free, I'd say free is probably a reasonable enough number, then move. So you don't get hit by a cruise missile, you don't get hit by other two artillery. I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's a top-ranked player in World of Tanks, and he told me, yeah, if you take more than 3 shots and you don't move, you're dead. And that's like I explained some of the things, but he really understood what I was talking about. And it's like, I was just asking him, how do you deal with this as a team leader? This is just like, well, you better start cursing a lot because there's nothing you can do. And that's kind of the unfortunate reality with quite a lot of players on this. I think Broken Arrow, more than anything, it just shows how a lot of people with a lot of different games will argue that, oh, we want it a bit slower because it can be more strategic, and I can think better and all that. And then you see people play. Even people at a higher ELO, you see them play and they're very passive, they're very slow, their decision-making is poor, they have decision paralysis. Those are the kind of things you want to avoid. Look, we all are lazy to an extent. Like, I might sometimes shoot artillery from a supply cache. I'll try and, when I care about it, I'll try and not do that, but sometimes you just need a fire mission, right? Or you just want to fire at an opportunity sometimes. But it shouldn't be your go-to method, right? you should try and always seek targets of opportunity, and your artillery should constantly be shooting, moving, or resupplying. One of those three. If it's not doing one of those, you're using it poorly. Same with air defenses. You do need air defenses. You need recon, control of infantry. Like, seriously, I've been able to get away with so much stuff with just infantry. That's another point I want to make. There's a lot of people that have talked about this on Reddit and other places, like, oh, infantry is not especially great in this game, it's just too weak. And I'm like, I almost play exclusively infantry, helicopters, and air power right now. Tanks and other vehicles are support. But the main line I have is based on infantry. Deltas, Rangers, all that. I play US as opposed to Russian just because, well, people with Russian decks, the US is just far more popular, so you have a smaller player base of people to go from. And I've seen people suicide their tanks way too often with US decks. It's worse with Russia. There was one match where the enemy team at one point just kept sending T-72s right in the middle of us. And it's kind of that behavior, like they're taking the road, they're leaving them exposed. Like, and moving in column formation, throw out the entire map. And then they get hammered by a nuke, and yeah, voila. It does happen. I see a lot of people, like, or people attacking points with tanks. There's nothing more awesome than playing a match and watching your team member I emphasize the try aspect, try and use an Abrams tank, a 400-point Abrams tank, maybe even higher, but a 400-point Abrams tank to try and take a point and then get destroyed by a 100-point infantry, and I'm being generous with regards to how much points those infantry units are. I'm just saying, people are very passive, they don't use right strategies, they don't micro. It can really drive you crazy. It's compounded by the fact that the lack of communication, lack of understanding, and the game doesn't necessarily teach these things. Like, I just keep thinking, while I'm recording this, I keep thinking about that one campaign mission where you were supposed to resupply the Patriots, and the Patriots never move throughout the mission. You just keep bringing supply caches, and you have the supply caches on the Patriots, and you're getting hammered by missiles the entire mission. That is not how anyone would use cruise missiles. Because I mentioned the campaign because there's a lot of missions that try and teach you different things, but not necessarily the right lessons on that subject. So there's a lot of things people can do to improve. Sure, there are balance issues, but when I look back at the matches I've won and lost, most of the time, like, I think 80% of matches that are decided one way or another, or if not higher, are decided by when one team just gives up. Not even that they can't win or that they're playing so poorly, they just give up. People quit or people go AFK. That does have an impact. And then you have people, so you have that situation, and then you just have people like you're just spinning the Russian roulette on which team is actually more passive and more badly disorganized, right? It's like watching two piles of offal clashing with each other and wondering which is the more awful of the two, really. Sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes you encounter certain players that are on the ball, they're playing properly, and it's a joy to play the game then, right? Of course, this brings up the problem that when you do have a team like that, when you do spin that roulette in your favor, the enemy team may not have it, and out of all the games that I've played, the vast majority of times you won't encounter like one good team going up against another good team. And so I think that is a problem that the developers should look to try and improve on to actually give us far more interesting and satisfying matches, because the game is really good and really satisfying when you have to coordinate and teams going after each other, when you do have that push and pull, when people are using their assets, when things are going according to plan. Well, there's been some games where I was at the edge of my seat the entire time. Like, one game, we went up against a team that was much higher ELO than us, like 200, 300 ELO, and we won. And while the final scoreboard was kind of ridiculous, one guy got like 20k, the thing is, that only really happened in like phase 3, like he started really racking up kills with AC on 30 and artillery. Before that, had a lot of air defenses, a lot of tanks, a lot of effort on the enemy team. They were really making us work for our win over there. But we did eventually break them. We got lucky a bit, took down some critical air defenses at just the right moment, caused the cascade effect, and it was really great that some people were running seeds, some people were running recon. I was running attack helicopters and also recon drones and all that. So it is a thing of beauty when you do have that kind of coordination in a team, and you do make it work. It can feel awesome, even if you lose, right? Like, you can play a game like this and you can lose, and it can still feel like a really fun match. But it's not fun just getting obliterated or obliterating someone. So in conclusion, I think Broken Arrow, from a developer who made their first game, this is an awesome title. Like, I don't think that should be understated. But I also think that it's showing that they are a first-time developer, because like those kind of features with rank play, clans, teams, etc. in the game, those features not being there does certainly hurt the game, and various issues like with disconnects, with what's rewarded, what isn't rewarded, what people may be incentivized if they think the scoreboard, their personal score, matters. Like, I can play a match and be at the bottom of the scoreboard, but I've contributed probably the most in a team. Or someone at the bottom of the scoreboard, and not just myself, like someone at the bottom of the scoreboard could be the most important person on the team. Like, I played one match, one guy was bottom of the scoreboard, but he provided so much recon information, he might as well have been at the top, right? Because he was doing a really, really good job with that recon, like laser designation with drones, running planes, running seed, etc., etc. He was doing an amazing job, bottom of the scoreboard. Maybe that is something of a problem with regards to how things are counted in the game, because people are always going to be incentivized to chase after those points, and maybe some different incentives should exist, or maybe things need to be readjusted in that respect. Costine, signing out. Stay tuned for more. Hope you all enjoyed this. As for myself, with regards to Broken Arrow, I think I'm going to wait for a balance patch at the very least before I continue playing it. Because right now, yeah, certainly some things need to be improved, but I don't really want to go down the pre-made path. I think that would just create this kind of situation where unless you meet another pre-made, curb stomping people can be fun for a while, then it stops being fun. Stay tuned.